And good evening, everyone. This is Matt Waldman with the RSP Film Room. This evening, we are going to be looking at Heisman winner Marcus Mariota, the quarterback from Oregon, who many consider one of the top two passers in the 2015 NFL Draft. This is a solo session tonight. I just got back from the Senior Bowl this week. It's been a really great week talking to a number of my colleagues in the draft analysis industry, as I would put it, and also getting a chance to talk to some people who have ties to the NFL. That's always great. Um, so before I really get into the Mariota film, we're going to watch him against FSU in the Rose Bowl semifinal and go over a lot of what I see here. But I'm often asked what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. What is it that I look at as an evaluator? What's important to me? And I'm gonna divide that into two categories. It's really, one is a set of skills, and both physical and conceptual in nature. And those are, to me, kind of baseline things that I'm looking for that say, can this guy perform the necessary duties it takes in terms of technique, conceptual understanding of the position, and physical skill to really perform in the NFL. And it's kind of more of a baseline. You know, Logan Thomas has baseline skills to develop into an NFL quarterback. He has NFL talent, I would put it. Does it mean that he has starter talent? Does it mean that he has talent to be a winner in the NFL? Those are things that I would say the answer is closer to no than yes. And it's why he was the number 3 quarterback for the Cardinals, and actually really the number 4 guy. And they considered starting him, but didn't go with him ultimately because he wasn't ready to be able to perform up to standard, even as a backup for the Arizona Cardinals this year, even though he has some really great physical talent. The other thing that I look at is more of a creative thing. It's more of a psychological thing. It's more about leadership and experience, about creativity, about being able to handle pressure. It's about being able to integrate all of these skills together. And that's what makes quarterback one of the most difficult positions in sport, and probably the most difficult position to evaluate in the NFL. Um, so today, one of the things that's going to happen is, as I evaluate the Mariota tape, I'll hopefully be able to answer a lot of the questions that I got on Twitter in terms of how good Mariota is and how does he project to the NFL. And one of those questions that was asked was really comparing him to a guy like Russell Wilson. How does he compare to the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl winning quarterback? Because people see Mariota and his mobility and his ability to throw the ball and some of his athleticism, and they see a guy who, oftentimes it's easy to project a guy like that and see the success that Wilson had, being a mobile, thrower who can also win with his legs and create. And it's very easy to see those types of similarities. So what I'm going to show you a little bit before we get started is the RSP database that I use to create prospects. Just to give you an idea, I already talked about some of the psychological things, and I talk about this a lot, about creating in and out of the structure of the play, and leadership and toughness, and being able to integrate skills, and to being able to handle adversity. Leadership, all of these things are very important. Preparation, but also some of the basic skills. So when I look at a player, I look at really two different things. The first thing I split into two different types of things is what they can do that's kind of baseline skills, and then how well do they do these particular things. And this is a screenshot of my database for quarterbacks. This is the Mariota game that I actually just scored against FSU. And you're going to see that I have tabs here. And these tabs give our categories, really: accuracy and arm strength, delivery and decision making, ball handling, pocket presence and scrambling, durability and character. And I have them then divided into subcategories. Accuracy and arm strength, you're going to see, numerous subcategories here, and they're weighted by point values. And you're also going to see that the skill is also checked. I have these boxes that are dropped down. They don't really show it here on the screen share, but it's yes, no, or not applicable in terms of how they're scored. I don't score not applicables really anymore. I try to look for anything that I can see, but even if I did have something left as not applicable, if I can speak right now, um, it, I would rather score somebody no, rather if I don't see something. So if I have it as an NA, not applicable, then I end up automatically putting it as a no, because to me, you the question comes down to this: if you haven't seen a player perform a certain category on your evaluation and you've looked hard enough, then you need to make an assumption. Either you have to assume that he's done it and until he's proven you otherwise, or you have to assume that he can't do it until he proves otherwise. Well, I tend to be more of a skeptic. When you move up a level to the NFL, everything gets harder. And I think it's better to be a skeptic when you're making decisions about a player and assuming that he can't do it until he proves to you that he can. So therefore, we're going to see, there's sometimes when I do evaluations that I'll have no's listed in areas where I haven't seen them perform yet. And I usually make that noted. You'll see my notes area. I'll note that in all of this detail here, and that goes on my RSP reports that are available. And then, if it's yes, then they get the points. And you'll see these points are divided up by what I think is most important. Each of these areas are defined in the RSP. You can find them in the glossary. And so that really makes it convenient in terms of learning the layers of the game and how that all works. And the reason that I do all of this and that I write down play by play what I saw and get this under my fingers is it gives me layers of information to learn. And every year I learn more. Every year it helps me to develop a more insightful checklist. It helps me adjust the checklist in ways to create more value for certain areas or less for others, where I find by experience things are either working right or not working right for my evaluations. It also allows me to see more of the game because I'm writing down so much. It gives me practice of really noticing what I see on the field to the point that I start to notice more and more and more as each year goes by. And it's not so much whether I know certain types of route combinations and name them and give all the technical jargon, because while that's important and can be very helpful, really it's about oftentimes just understanding how the game works. And even if I'm not defining it the way the coach may define it, by the correct term, understanding what it is that a player is looking for, and how a play is supposed to run and be set up. You don't always need the right name for it. You just need to show that you understand it. So that's one of the things why I try and put things in plain language for people and not in coach speak, because most people who are going to be looking at this aren't coaches. So that's a little bit about the RSP. You can see these are all things that if a player scores a 100 on the evaluation, it doesn't mean that he's a future all-star. In fact, it just means that he has potential to develop all of the areas that I think hit the baselines for him to be a good NFL quarterback. But, we put here, for instance, with intermediate accuracy, I have it as yes, no, or not applicable. If it's a yes, based on how I define it, it still doesn't show you how well or how good he is in terms of intermediate accuracy. There are a lot of quarterbacks who have off the charts accuracy, who can, hit people in tight windows with, just crazy types of throws, from distances or into tight windows that are almost unfathomable. Those guys are going to get a lot more credit and be rated a lot higher than somebody who just hits the baseline. But I rate them in a different way after I use all of this information on the database. So this is just one half of how I go about evaluating and ranking quarterbacks. But, some basic things to just give you an idea of what it is that I'm looking for with a quarterback. The basic things are I'm looking for players who can operate inside the structure of a play and outside of a structure of the play when it breaks down. I want guys who can integrate their skill sets, guys who can, throw the ball with intermediate accuracy, but also be able to set up how they do it on the move. And the reason they can set it up doing it on the move is that they sense pressure well and they know how to maneuver a pocket so that they can get into position to create situations to make these types of throws. I want guys who know how to throw with velocity and throw with accuracy, but also know how to throw with touch and know the difference between when they should throw a touch pass and when they should throw something with a little more mustard on it. I want guys who are tough, who can handle pressure, and when they get hit, they get up and they still are making aggressive decisions downfield. And that's another thing that I want is aggression. I want players who are attacking a defense, but also balance that with an understanding of when to attack and be really aggressive, but at the same time, not be so aggressive that they're making reckless choices that are going to cost their team the ball game when they really didn't have to make that type of an aggressive throw. Um, there are times where quarterbacks are going to have to be aggressive to the point that they know it's likely that they make a mistake. But they know that if they don't give it a try, they never have a shot of bringing their team back to win a game. At the same time, I don't want guys who are going to make those type of aggressive decisions and make the situation worse when they really didn't need to have to go that route. So it's really a balance between, conservatism and an aggressive play and understanding the difference. It's a balance between knowing when to be tough and when to be conservative with your body. It's really about wisdom. I want a wise passer, a guy who's balanced with his athleticism and his technique, someone who doesn't always have to follow the technique and written rules of the road and follow the structure of the play and know when it's time to abandon that and be able to play a little bit looser. Physically, when I'm looking for a quarterback, I have a much wider range than maybe some people do. The NFL often looks at guys who are at least 6'2", somewhere between 6'2" and 6'5", because they can see over the line of scrimmage and throw over passing lanes and make it easier for their linemen to block for them without having to create or widen lanes. They're looking for guys with arm strength to be able to hit the deep out and be able to throw deep balls on a line. They're also often looking for guys who are big enough, at least 220 pounds, to be able to take a beating if they need to, and be able to get back up and make plays. Someone who can throw the ball with an over-the-shoulder type of release, with a tight spiral. These are all things that, are often what people look for. I look for players. To me, I think that if a player is about Russell Wilson's height, about 5'10", 5'11", maybe even 5'9", if they have the compensatory skills to move around the pocket, to be able to know how to manipulate pressure in a way where that they can create a passing lane and get rid of the ball fast, and also understand how to see the field and deliver the ball with enough arm strength to get the ball to a receiver and beat a defense that is trying to force him to throw the ball in that area, then I'm okay with that. That means he doesn't have to have a Brett Favre laser rocket arm, but at the same time, he needs to have enough arm strength that he can hit the intermediate ranges of the field with good velocity. I want someone who, if they get hit, or if they get pressured up the middle, or if they feel pressure, that they don't rush the throw, that they don't kind of mentally shut off and tuck the ball and just take a sack and give up on the play. I don't want guys who understand how a scheme works, but when they get pressured, they don't even look to the player they're supposed to throw to. They just automatically try and throw the ball in that area, just blindly throw the football. I want folks who really work, play with their brains, smart, heady poised football players who happen to be physically tough and can make the requisite throws. Everything over that is gravy. So we're going to, this has been a good bit of time I've spent solely on what I look for from a quarterback. But I think it's important as we're going to take a look at Mariota, who plays in an Oregon offense that often people criticize as saying he throws to wide open lanes, and that as a result of him throwing wide open lanes, we don't know whether or not he has what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. So we're going to watch this film. I'm going to keep it in, probably half speed for much of the time, and we're going to talk about that half speed in a little bit here. In terms of what we have, in terms of what we're looking at. If I can get that set up the way I wanted to. I think I just did something with the quality of the game. Let me go ahead and rewind or reset it here. See if I can. Here we go. Look at this at half speed now. There we go. We're going to get this started. All right, one of the things that you're going to see that's common about this offense against Florida State in this game is that you're often going to see 2, 3, and 4 receiver sets that spread the field. There's often a lot of use of tight end. You're also going to see a lot of use of motion and shifting in this game. And that's what this offense is all about. They're trying to keep teams off balance and force them to declare something and then use movement by both the receivers, the backs, and the quarterback to force one man to get open, and then it's up to Mariota to find that open man. So a lot of this is predicated on movement. You're going to see this single wide receiver motion to the trip side. You're going to see a little bit of a read option fake here, or at least an implied one, to freeze the defense momentarily so that he can run what's a glorified running play to this outside receiver who's just motioned across the field. And one of the common things that you're going to see with Mariota is that he gets rid of the ball quickly. You're also going to see him throw the ball in an area that allows the receiver to make the catch and get downfield immediately. On this particular play, he stopped very early on. The defense notices the play well, but you're going to see on future runs or future passes like this that they're going to start to build yardage. And that's why I talk about this in context of a running play, because oftentimes plays like this, you got to do this multiple times, and eventually it wears the defense down or it sets up the defense. You're going to see he does have a quick setup. You're going to see that, he's got his feet under him, immediately throws the ball, snaps off of his shoulder with an over-the-shoulder motion. And there you go. Not a good result, but the process is pretty good in terms of when you're looking at simply mechanics for a short, quick throw. This is another play where you're going to see some of this read option look. This time you saw a very nice ball extension that forced the linebacker to come inside. Let's look at that one more time here. See the linebacker charge up. He was heading for that running back. He saw that read option. Then you're going to see a quick drop, and then the feet are under him, but then now he's moving back a little bit and throwing this ball as kind of a fadeaway to a screen. And notice how he held on to the ball the first time. You see a little bit of a pump. It's a nice little pump here. And we're going to see the pump fake a lot from his game. And this is a hallmark of Marcus Mariota's game, is play fakes within the read option spread scheme and pump fakes. This is the one pump fake that I saw in this game where he uses one hand on the ball. And it's a very light pump fake. It's not a really heavy or hard one. The harder pump fakes seem to come with two hands, which is going to be interesting to see what his hand measurements are when it comes to throwing the ball. But it's a nice little flick. It's got some touch. It's a little bit, behind the running back, but it gives him an opportunity to make the catch, shielding the defense from the inside, turn up field, and at least get a minimum of positive yards here. And I like the patience that he exhibits here if he's not completely sure about when to throw the ball, because here's the running back. He doesn't throw it here because he sees the defender inside. He waits for the defender for the running back to pass the defender, draws the defense in a little bit more, but is confident enough to throw that ball. And you're going to see this on a consistent basis. quick passing as well as good touch passing in the short game. And that's a big component of quarterback in the NFL, no matter how much people like to talk about the deep ball. It is the short ball that's going to be very important here. Florida State's going to often run this three-man front. It's also going to run a four-man front on a frequent basis in this game. You're going to see a little bit of a threat of potentially blitz either in the A gap or this B gap here. And here we see it heading towards the A gap. You're going to see a little bit of a read option play. This guy ends up sliding off to the B gap here. Standing in the pocket, looking downfield, you see his feet are under him. There was really no real drop here, and that's something that people are going to want to see when it comes to workouts. Can he do a series of 3-step, 5-step, and 7-step drops from center? You know, he's most likely going to be doing a lot of spread field, spread option type of formations. The NFL will probably accommodate him a good bit because they know that's what he does well, and it's had some success in the NFL. But ultimately, you're going to want to see him develop into a pocket passer who can give an offense flexibility and work from center so that the running game doesn't always have to be a pistol or a spread type of thing. So you see this play fake. You see him looking up the left seam immediately to this tight end, to this outside receiver in the slot. He looks a little further, sees that it's covered, and you're going to see him turn. And he turns to the next man here. Now, you could say the question that you would have to ask is he following a progression? That's one of the things that the Twitter reader asked me, a Twitter follower asked me earlier tonight about Mariota, and I'm going to be answering some Twitter questions throughout. Does he commonly have to read his progressions? And you could say that he is reading his progressions here. Or he's setting up the safety and was never intending to actually make these types of throws to the left. I would say, based on the fact that neither of these players have made breaks yet, you could make the argument that he's holding the safety to the left-hand side here and then turning to the right to throw. But you could also say that he was looking here, saw where the coverage was over top, and knew that these weren't going to break open. So I would say that in this play, he's likely reading a progression and going to his second or third progression here. With the throw, you see that he was kind of on his toes. You see the ball, his hips open, and then you're going to see him deliver with a, fairly nice form over the shoulder. The ball's not too far back. You're going to see him come over the top where his leg comes off the ground a little bit. He probably could have driven the ball a little bit more. But there's nice zip on the ball, except it's just, again, not thrown accurately here for this particular play. And I would say one of the reasons here that you could say that is that there's really no follow through with that leg. He's not driving the ball as well as he could. So I said he drove it pretty well, but when you look on it, I was thinking of another play. When you look at this, you watch, he's got his feet set. He turns, and one of the common things you're going to see with his game is that when he has to make a turn or a pivot and get his feet in the ground and then throw off of that where he sticks his feet in, he sometimes becomes so rigid with that he throws from what's either an off-balanced position or he's not fully following through. And this isn't a full follow-through. And you can see that he's wide and high on this throw. And misses the receiver on this sail route. Now, just because he misses one throw doesn't mean that he has an issue for the NFL. So we're going to have to watch a lot more of these. But you're going to see this theme kind of come up again. Again, we're going to see the single receiver come up towards the formation. And you see a drop back with a scissor step. He plants off that back foot, hitches, and then drives. And this time the foot doesn't fully come up again either, but this time the ball is delivered to the back shoulder on this sail route once again. So, looking at this throw, let's look at the first one that he missed. This is on, let's see, where were we? A 3rd and 8? This was on 3rd and 8 in the first drive where he misses it. Then on the next series, you're going to see the same throw. It's just disguised a little bit with a different formation. See a little bit more defined feet and a hitch and step into the throw. It's still not perfect looking technique, as some people would say that, but again, within context, he gets the throw off. It's well placed. It's in stride, requires a little bit of a turn, but it still gives the tight end here an opportunity to make the catch, take contact, shed it a little bit, and gain a few yards on the play. It's a good throw. So how much of a difference is it going to be for him to raise that back foot off the ground to generate a little bit more zip? It could help. Does it mean that it's a fatal flaw if he doesn't do it? Not at all. But I would say this, watch what he does here mechanically. That foot comes off the ground a little bit more. This ball is going to arrive a little bit earlier. He can drive it a little bit ahead so the tight end doesn't have to turn around to catch it, and he can continue upfield and possibly beat number 8 to the sideline, or at least get another step, run through this wrap, and gain a lot more yards. That's the difference between one minor flaw in the technique and flawless technique. And that's why the range with quarterbacking, it's, why we can look at technique and say, if you got flawless technique and you're accurate with your flawless technique, it can make a difference. Then again, Jake Locker often has very good technique, and he doesn't hit this throw on as consistent of a basis as he should have during his career thus far. This time he's staring down this receiver, but it's not a complete stare down. Watch this cornerback dropping and reading the quarterback. He looks off. He stares now at this cornerback. He's actually looking down this cornerback here enough that when he hitches, the cornerback's still thinking maybe this throw, there might be a turn and throw with a check down here. He's holding the man in his spot and then throws the ball over. It's not just a complete stare down of this tight end. So while it's not a progression, he is still using his eyes, and that's something that he can work with, or the NFL coach can work with Mariota. Once again, look how fast he gets rid of the ball. This is another one of these running plays. It's really a passing play that's really a running play. There's not much of a play action to this, but there doesn't need to be. It's implied. Immediately catch, turn, deliver the ball. And it's fast enough, it gives this receiver room to run through and get a minimum of yards. Again, just like running plays are in the game, sometimes these 2-3 yard gains turn into 5, 10, 15 yard gains later on. And you're going to see some of that. Some more motion out of the backfield. Notice we've had a lot of motion and shifting so far. Get a high snap. We're going to get him rolling to his left here. Watch him square his body enough that the shoulders at least square, brings the ball back. Then you're going to see him throw outside here. It's a little high, but he doesn't put a lot of mustard on this pass, which is a good thing. I mean, you're showing a little bit of touch here. So it gives the receiver a chance to leap, turn, make the catch, and head downfield. On a throw like this, where you're on the move to your opposite hand and throwing the ball, and that's good touch, and that's a nice play on a difficult throw. So I don't mind it being a little high. What I would mind is if you put a lot of zip on it, making it really high. It's not a perfect spiral. You see a little bit of a wobble, but again, it's a difficult play, and he handles it fairly well. He gives his wide receiver enough room to be able to gain yardage after the catch, and it's a catchable ball. We don't see what happens on this play other than he gets outside and then just finishes here for a couple of yards. You're going to see bursts from Mariota, but one of the things that I don't see in his game an awful lot is a dynamic runner. And I know that people think of Mariota as a dynamic runner, but I'm going to give you some examples of why he is not as this game goes on. Here's a 2x2, the first one we had, and we see a little bit of a pump fake early on. Flashes the ball. See, both hands on the ball, comes forward early, throws that pump fake in this region, turns back to his right. Now it's a designed roll to the right. looks downfield, delivers the ball to his crossing route. Very nice play. And this is all by design, and you're going to see it come into focus a little bit more. I'm going to draw this up for you and freeze it here. This slot left receiver that I'm circling here with my cursor, he is going to run an intermediate cross, and he's going to be the targeted man past the first down marker. Marota is going to freeze the defense and bait it to the inside, or bait it to the left side with that pump fake, then get the defense overreacting to the outside right with these two outside receivers flooding this zone in the short and intermediate range with his roll to the right side. He looks downfield and he gets the defense flowing. It's a really nice play calling. Then throws it back to the inside seam and hits that tight end over here just under the receiver. These are one of the common throws that Marota makes, that while it's quote unquote a wide open throw, he does it on the move. He does it with accuracy, and he does set up the defense, and manipulates the zone. This is not an easy throw. This is not he just throws to open spaces. He can't play quarterback in the NFL. There are certainly some reason to have some criticisms with whether or not he's going to be a good NFL starter. But that's just not a simple play. It's also, though, what a good question would be is whether or not Marota is a beneficiary of a great system, and whether or not he's going to be able to do things in a system that doesn't have these types of motion and shifting and spreading the field, so where he's throwing against zone an awful lot. So we're going to see a 2x2 stacked receiver set. You're going to see this read option, and he is quick with the read option. You're going to see that he's a very quick player right off the bat, and that he does draw this defender in. And you're going to see this is also a common play where he plays a little bit of a point guard here, and they encourage this at Oregon. This is, again, a scheme thing. Gets up the corner here very fast enough to draw in these two defensive backs, and that allows him to pitch the ball to the outside receiver, and that allows the receiver to get upfield and get the first down and almost threaten the red zone here, but down inside the one. Really nice play. I don't know if you're going to see that an awful lot in the NFL. It depends on where he ends up going and whether they like that. I think it's a gimmick play. You might see him try once or twice, and depending on how an NFL defense responds to it will be, you'll get your answer as to whether or not it's actually going to work out. Once again, we're going to see some shifting against this Florida State front. A quick, implied play fake, again, set up with the feet, ball over the shoulder, quick flick of the wrist, downfield shoulder that he throws it to, leads the receiver downfield, gives him a chance to set up his blocks and get the first down. These 2 and 3 yard gains that we saw earlier in the first quarter, now in the middle to end of the first quarter, are turning into 5 to 10 yard gains already. We're going to see another implied, play action fake there, quick setup, nice delivery again, front foot forward. You're going to see he kind of throws with his legs and hips here, kind of brings that foot around. You want to see him bring the foot around a little bit more because he looks like he's more of a leg thrower than a hip thrower. But this is a short pass, doesn't need to have a ton of zip on it. Hits the tight end quick. As good as a first down run for 5 yards. Once again, motioning that single receiver to the backfield. This time they fake the jet sweep across to the right end. He's going to drop back looking to his left, then turn, and then throw this ball. And this is going to be an inaccurate throw that should have been a touchdown. And I'm going to show you why I think this is. It's not a definitive analysis because, again, we'd have to see more tape. But I told you about how he doesn't always get his feet under him. Well, what I mean is when he has to change direction like this, it's a dynamic set of moves. He's You've got the end around fake, this jet sweep fake. Now it's rolling to the left so that he baits them going left, but then he's going to pivot his feet and turn back around and throw across on this post. But watch how he pivots the feet, and when he throws, it's like he sticks his feet in the ground and then tries to open up his hips and deliver it all at once. It's not as it's because he has to do it so quickly that his body isn't completely under him. It's still kind of leaning back as he's throwing the ball. And because he's leaning back as he throws the ball, he's not really driving through it as much. You see the drive through here, but there wasn't enough time between the lean back with the pivot step to get into position and that throw. See it one more time. This has to happen so quick. Pivot, and his feet are still in the air here, and then just hitting the ground as he's already opened up to throw. So let's look at this one more time because everyone's now looking at me instead of Mariota. There we go. And then when he throws that ball, see how he airmails it, goes over the receiver. This could have easily been, caught, turned upfield, at least get inside the 5 here. But that's something that you're going to see commonly with him. And that's kind of the downside of a system where you have a lot of movement like this. You have to have really precise footwork and be able to set up fast. And even a guy who executes it well like Mariota is going to have those types of mistakes with a lot of movement like this. But it's something that I do see commonly with this offense that's a downfall at times. Here's one where you see a short drop. You're going to see pressure coming off this left side. And when he's going to notice that pressure, and you see him climb up, hitch, see pressure coming to the inside, bail underneath his tackle, and try and work outside. See how wild the ball is, though? He's holding this ball in a way that's not very good in terms of protection. Makes a little stop-start fake, gets some yardage so it prevents the sack, but I don't like the ball protection here. Got both hands on the ball here. But what you're going to see is, I think, an overreaction to pressure. I'm not sure how much I would put stock into saying that he consistently overreacts to pressure, but there are times that when I see pressure coming to him towards the middle of the field or meeting him to the middle, and he sees that about to cloud his judgment, he doesn't stay patient and throw the ball. Now, we don't know what's being going on downfield without the all-22. So everything might have been covered well enough that he felt like he had to bail to the left here and buy time. But even when he does, the ball's way too low. If there was pursuit from the backside, this ball's going to get knocked out. It's going to be something he has to be careful about. But I like that he's quick enough to force a defender to break down early, can make someone miss, but he really has to protect that ball. And he's going to learn that lesson very early on in the NFL if he continues to play with that ball held like a loaf of bread like that. This is a design play to the right without any type of motion that we saw. You're going to see him looking right here. He looked deep. Now he's going back to the short range. He's going to see this receiver that I'm circling just under the first down marker. This receiver is going to read Mariota and work towards the hash. Then you're going to see this defender with the long hair behind number 5 work across to defend. Nice job by Mariota making the man miss. And he's going to flick the ball while hit across his body, back across the field. Dangerous throw. This is something you don't want to see from a quarterback. To me, this is too aggressive. This is not smart quarterback play, especially when you're up by 5 on a 4th and 5. Even though you want to try and go for it here, there's a point where you just say it'll be incomplete. We've got them inside the 25. They've still got a good length of field to go. Let's not give up a pick 6, which this could have been. But it's also just, putting the receiver in harm's way where he takes a hit and gets shoved to the ground. show this to you one more time. And this is going to be a common issue with Mariota that I am worried about. And this is something that you should really think about when you talk about a quarterback in the NFL. He's going to have to break this habit. The longer he keeps a play alive, the more reckless he gets with keeping the play alive. I mean, he's looking down. First, he's kind of maybe looking here and then waiting for that third receiver coming open downfield. But when he sees that it doesn't happen, he looks downfield and nothing's here. This is a time you either run or you throw the ball away. It doesn't matter. If you were down 8-3 and there were 4 minutes and 15 seconds left in the game and you knew that you weren't going to be able to get another possession and this was it, then you maybe make this type of throw that he's trying to do to buy time with. I mean, I like the athleticism. I like the willingness to stand in there and take a hit to throw it, but not in the first quarter with a 5-point lead. Just a very foolish decision. It's I want to be a hero decision in a big bowl game. This is I'm less than 25 years old and have the wisdom of most people under 25 years old who are relying on their athletic ability. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's just a common thing. And if you're going to be a common quarterback or a common 25, 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old quarterback, you're going to make these types of plays. And that's the difference between being what I would say the common NFL quarterback and a good starting NFL quarterback. The difference between being, say, the 18th ranked quarterback by statistics that matter and being a top 10 passer in the league. He's not there yet, folks. He's not going to be for a little bit of time. Now you see here the deep in his end zone. And this is a play I want you to see as well, where I wonder about his ability to handle pressure. What you're going to watch is when he takes this drop back, he's going to step forward into the throw, but he's not going to plant that front foot as firmly as you want to see. He holds onto the ball and then plants the foot one more time a little harder and then delivers the ball, and it ends up short over the middle, and the receiver drops it because it's so short. Watch the step forward right here. What? There you go. It's like 2 steps and then waits to throw the ball. The ball comes out funny, underthrown. Maybe could have made the catch still, but it's a difficult catch. And I'm sorry about my little sound effects. It's late at night, but you guys know I'm a little weird anyway. So here we go. We got the drop back. You got the shuffle step forward. Got the front foot coming forward. Then it's kind of double clutches that foot, almost double steps. And it's all because of this middle pressure. He sees that middle pressure across his face, and he's hesitant. It has nothing to do with the receiver. Watch this receiver. He cuts across. He was there. Mariota just saw that pressure come across. Wasn't sure whether he should throw it. Overreacted to it. And it's a split-second thing. It's not something that he's going to get untrained with. And I've seen other passers do this. I've even seen Russell Wilson do this. But when Russell Wilson's done this, I watched some NC State tape and some Wisconsin tape. I saw him against Michigan State with Wisconsin on a very similar throw like this. But when he hesitated, just like Mariota did, he threw the ball with a lot more zip, and it made it to his receiver, and it was completed. Mariota, on the other hand, he tends to underthrow or overthrow balls because if he can get his rhythm disrupted and he doesn't have the focus or wherewithal to be able to get back on track. Now, this is slower, but you see the burst, and this is smart. This is why I say he's a good runner, but he's not a dynamic runner. It's a good burst up the seam. As it's closing, he knows how to slide. avoids getting hit. It's a very Alex Smith type of play, a Mark Sanchez type of play. This is how he compares to those guys. Both of those players were very mobile, but they weren't dynamic runners. Even Alex Smith, with all his yards at Utah, was really more of a good runner, not a great runner. You're going to see the same thing here. Read option, get a little bit of a nice, toss over to the tight end on the drag route. Once again, this is very West Coast oriented in a spread option game. This is why I would say that there are some similarities to Alex Smith and to Mark Sanchez. They both understand, all three of them use ball fakes. They operate well with movement. They can throw the ball well on the move and deliver it with touch in the short game and give their receiver a chance to earn yards after the catch. This is a first down. It's a really nice play on 2nd and 7. And a lot of it has to do with Mariota. Once again, read option fake. Now it's going to be behind the tight end. Now we're going to get a chance to see a press and cut here. This is a play that you could wonder if he could press the inside shoulder, but he doesn't. He just stays outside. Part of that is because of this interior defender pursuing, pressing inside here and trying to cut back out. He might have given this defender too much of a chance to close. So he heads outside. He's got enough burst to get to the outside and get the first down, make the play, not take a hard hit. This is good work. This is part of that in a Chip Kelly offense. This is something that he could do. In a more pro style set where they use more zone plays and rollouts and bootlegs, you could also see Mariota being effective if he can develop a good game from under center. Another read option fake, quick throw, and watch where he throws this ball. Leads it forward to the front shoulder and gives his man room to assess his blockers and press and cut from inside out to get close to the first down on 1st and 10. That's a lot to do with Mariota's short game and the design of this offense. Watch it one more time. Quick snap. Nice throw. Very good job. You're going to see him lead receivers quite a bit. Throws left or right on this type of trips formation, short wide receiver throw out. Now we're going to start to see these trips sets with a look to the motioning running back as a receiver right off of that. And that baits the defense to have to honor it, but then he sprints inside, gets the necessary yards for the first down. Oregon does a great job of using one play that's successful, and then on the next play, mimicking something about that successful play to But is he Russell Wilson? And the answer is definitively not Russell Wilson. He's a guy maybe on the spectrum, but Russell Wilson's on a much further end of that spectrum. But it's kind of like Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are kind of cousins in terms of quarterback style. You can see how one player might relate to both of them, but they both belong on different spectrums. Because Rodgers is probably more of a West. You're seeing in the way that his offense is expressed that you can see him more of a West Coast guy, and you can see him really making more plays with his arm off of his legs than Russell Wilson. Now, I would argue that Russell Wilson could probably play an Aaron Rodgers offense, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers would necessarily be as effective running around the field the way that Russell Wilson is to make plays in his offense in Seattle. And I don't think there really are any that do, and that separates them a bit. But let's look at a couple of plays that I have of Wilson that I've pulled up that compare him to Aaron Rodgers, or compare him to, to Marcus Mariota, and some comparison and contrast. Now, this is one of the things that you're going to see is that we haven't seen Mariota work under center at all. And so that's one thing that he's going to have to prove that he can do. On this particular play, you're going to see play action. I'm going to keep the speed at half speed. You're going to see a quick throw up the middle. Now, one of the reasons that I show this is one is the zip that he has, the way that he steps through this throw a little bit, and how he hits this receiver in stride. That's something that we haven't seen quite of with Mariota in the way that we would like to see, that we've already seen with Wilson. You also see that this is a play fake from center. So this is something else that you're going to have to see him develop. There's also pressure up the middle, and he doesn't hesitate. He sees that pressure, zips it, hits the man in stride. That's something that you're going to want to see Mariota do that Wilson showed early on in his career. Here's another play of Wilson that we're going to see that I believe is important to showing the difference between the two. You're going to see pressure coming from either side. You see the drop back. You see him slide into the pocket, turn outside, then work with a pump fake. Now look at that pump fake. That's a one-arm pump fake, and it's a pretty hard pump fake, harder than what we saw Mariota do earlier in the game with just one arm. Wilson has those big hands. He can pump fake with a fuller range of motion, get a defender moving off the ground, and then gain yards up the field in a way that Mariota isn't going to necessarily be able to do. Mariota doesn't make this type of pump fake right there. And that's what got the defender off his feet. And that's what got Wilson in the end zone. Here's another play with Wilson. See the play fake, the roll to the right. Now he's going to have to work away from pressure. He's going to work across the field. He delivers a deep ball. And this is going to be intercepted. Now you could say this was a throw across the field. Wilson shouldn't have done this. And I agree wholeheartedly. This was a reckless play. And I'm showing this to you for two reasons. One is that even the better quarterbacks that we see in the NFL are prone to hero plays. Russell Wilson was not immune. But the context of this play that's different is that Wilson is throwing the ball across the field to the sideline, thinking he can beat the safety. So I see the logic in this one more than I see the logic of throwing it across the body to the middle of a field. He simply overthrows the ball, and you end up with an interception. Not a good play, but it's somewhat more explainable than a bad play that we saw from Mariota. All right, here's one more. I believe this is a good play from Wilson that we're going to see that highlights Wilson's physical skills that we haven't seen from Mariota yet. He avoids pressure. You see him turn to his left and then decide to turn around back to his right. Now pressure's coming. He delivers the ball from about the 30. And you're looking at a 55-yard throw to a receiver on a comeback. Have we seen that yet from Marcus Mariota? Have we seen Mariota throw a comeback more than 20 yards down the field? More than 25 yards down the field? Not really. But little 5'10", 5'11" Russell Wilson, whatever he is, throws that ball on a line 55 yards downfield. Let's look at it from above. This is what was seen from Wilson on tape. And this is why you need to trust your eyes sometimes. Because look at that. You see this all the time in the NFL with him. It translates. Here comes the ball from the 29, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 55 yards if you take the 29 to the 16. Pretty nice throw, don't you say? That's starter caliber arm strength right there that Mariota hasn't shown yet. And then there's this play. It's a play that I profiled in my first Football Outsiders article studying the asterisk. And what you're going to see here is reading interior pressure and making aggressive plays downfield. You're going to see a double-A gap blitz from these two interior linebackers from Virginia Tech. You've got a 3-by-1 formation, 3-by-2 empty set, excuse me. And this slot receiver is the guy that Wilson's going to all the way. And Wilson knows is the man he wants to get because he knows that with this single safety over the top here, the field spread, and two interior defenders showing blitz, that this slot man is paired one-on-one with this linebacker, and it's a mismatch. And all he has to do is get the ball in the area, and it should be a complete pass for a big play. Here comes the pressure. You see the pressure coming through. Wilson's already looking here. He sees that his man's open. Throws the ball upfield, taking the hit. Just lofts the ball because he knows. Just gets the ball in the area, and there you go. You got the catch. That's a nice play. That's the type of play that you want to see. You see Phillip Rivers make. You see Wilson still make it. It's the type of play that shows aggression. It shows trust in your receivers and touch, ability to take a hit, throw the ball with poise against contact, and to read and recognize the field early on. And this was Russell Wilson as a junior. That's what you're looking for. There's integrated skills right there. That's some of the it factor. That's what you want to see from a guy like Mariota that we haven't seen just yet. So that's my take on Mariota. Let's look at a couple of the questions that people have to ask about him, and we'll end this show. So some of the questions that we had, one is that his ability to look off safeties and the impact of that helping his wide receivers get open. I think we saw in this game that he was able to at least look off some defensive backs. He was able to look off safeties to set up plays within the scheme that he had. I don't think that's going to be a major issue for him. It's really going to be, what's going to be an issue for him is whether or not he has the arm strength and the willingness to throw the ball away when he needs to. That's what I would say. Somebody asked, it seems like that Marcus Mariota hurts his legs every year. Is that a huge concern? I would say it's a huge concern if that's the truth. Players who run a lot for a living are prone to that type of thing happening. But I would say that, if he plays more as a pocket quarterback and slides, then he should be all right. Another question from John Lobb asks, is he a better quarterback prospect than Alex Smith, Vince Young, or Robert Griffin? Alex Smith, I would say he's about even with Alex Smith at this point, unless I see better arm strength from him. They have similar type of skills as far as running the football. Um, they show decent intermediate and short accuracy and good movement and play fakes and pump fakes. The question is um, is Mariota a student of the game in the way that he can stop being too aggressive when he buys time and get reckless? And that's where he's a little more like Vince Young, but he also seems to be a little bit more of a less of an improviser and runner than Vince Young. So I wouldn't compare him to Vince Young. I would say that Vince Young had more upside than Mariota, but his approach to the game and character in terms of approaching the game, his maturity wasn't there, and that's what ultimately hurt him. It wasn't his skills as a quarterback as much as his willingness to grow as a quarterback. Robert Griffin is a combination of both young and some other, and maybe a player like Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. But we didn't get to see the Aaron Rodgers part develop because he got hurt, because he was forced into playing more like a running quarterback than being really a thrower at a level where he was asked to develop from the pocket. Now we're going to have to see whether or not he can turn things around, where he's regressed some because he's taken a lot of hits, because he's gotten hurt, and he's playing in an offense that, is losing belief in him, and he's lost belief in himself to some degree. So when someone like John Valtrese asks, is there anything that Mariota has shown that he'll transition better than RG3 to the pro game? And I'd say, really, what he's shown is that he's not as fast as Robert Griffin, so it's unlikely he's going to be asked to run the ball nearly as much as RG3, which means that the coaches aren't going to screw it up. That's pretty much the answer that I will have to that one. As far as his ability to process plays, Robert Griffin had that potential, so I don't think it's quite that fair. I would say that Robert Griffin was a better prospect who got thrown into the meat grinder faster than what I expect Mariota to get thrown into. And we asked, has he been required to go through his progressions very often? Does he normally take his first read? I would say, we saw, Philip, that that the answer to this is that when he's had opportunities to throw the ball downfield, he will often look to his first or second player before going to another. He'll often go to a second player or his third player. So first reads are often just required plays like short throws, short passes that aren't really about progressions as much as getting rid of the ball fast. How do I rate his abilities, his accuracy? I would say that he has good short accuracy. He has good touch on his short accuracy. I would say that he flashes intermediate accuracy, where he can deliver the ball at the sideline with precision, with anticipation, and accuracy that would fit some tight windows, especially at the boundary. But what I haven't seen is small window accuracy over the middle. I haven't seen consistent accuracy over the middle, especially when he has had to change his foot position or shift his body off of plays that are predicated on a lot of movement, play fakes, and that's something that is, probably puts him below some players that would have that good intermediate accuracy. Does he have football intelligence? Does he understand his scheme? I think he understands his scheme very well. I think it's evidenced by how he uses play fakes, how he uses pump fakes, how he's able to move around and get into position to find the open man. Routes and defenses, I think that, again, he's going to if he has to learn how, he doesn't play in multiple schemes. That's another thing that's different from Russell Wilson. We saw Russell Wilson play in a spread attack at NC State. We also saw him play in a West Coast offense at Wisconsin. That made him a much better prospect right off the bat. We didn't see much of that. Excuse me. We saw one system out of Mariota. So, the types of defenses does he handle? Can he handle some pressure? It seems like he can handle outside pressure. It seems like that he can deal with zone defenses. His decision making, I'd say his decision making needs work. He's someone that can bait a defense. He's someone that can buy time, but he's not someone that um, is, I would say, wise enough to throw the ball away. I would say that he needs some help being able to make more mature decisions. And that's something that may come, but it's also something that may take him a while to, kind of get him out of. Is he mobile? I would say that yes, he is mobile. He's above average in his mobility, but he's not dynamic in his mobility. He's a guy that's going to give you 10 to 15 yard gains on a regular basis. He's not going to need to be spied like Russell Wilson. He'll be able to move around the pocket. I'd say he's a little bit more mobile than Matthew Stafford is, a little bit more mobile than Jay Cutler is, but he's not mobile enough that you would say you want him to be running that read option scheme unless you have a great running back like LaShawn McCoy. Situations where he consistently struggles on tape, say intermediate, intermediate throws where he's had to change his foot position, where he's had to make a quick turn or stop to throw the ball. Interior pressure where he's had to slide forward and then throw because he tends to move his feet a little bit too fast rather than do it in a measured way. I would also say that he struggles with throwing the ball across his body. The longer the play continues, the more invested he gets, and the less likely he's going to throw the ball away. So those are some things that were asked. In terms of fit, do I believe he's a better fit for the Eagles than Foles? I would say that he's more mobile than Foles. I don't know if he's showing some of the same mistakes Foles made in terms of throwing the ball up for grabs in the middle of the field. I'm not sure he has the arm strength or the deep interior accuracy that you want to see. So I'm going to say the jury's still out about whether or not that's the case. But I will say that if a team's there's talk about them moving up to grab Foles right now, I would tell you that the likelihood of that answer being correct is probably 15 to 20% accurate. I would not trust what people are telling the media right now when it comes to, what's happening from players, what's happening in the draft at this stage. And another one is, from Jack's Bucks fans, do you think he will be able to make throws in the tight windows as the program requires? Right now, the answer is, I don't know. I haven't seen enough in the middle of the field to believe that he can. At the same time, I see enough from him in terms of placement with short throws, as well as his placement on some of his intermediate outside throws where he has the boundary as his friend, that I think it's possible. I just don't know yet. I need to see some proof. And is his game worthy of a number one pick? As a first round pick, I would say there's going to be a team that will pick him due to the reality of the way the NFL drafts quarterbacks. I'll understand why, though I don't agree with it. I don't think he's worthy of the number one overall pick. I showed you Russell Wilson, who I think, if we looked in hindsight, might say that he was worthy of a top 10 pick overall. And you saw the arm strength on the move. You saw the ability to throw, make aggressive plays and read the field against aggressive blitzes and and trust his receivers. You saw the arm strength and the ability to work under pressure up the middle. That combination of toughness, smarts, accuracy, and creativity, I didn't see any of that in Mariota's game. What I see is a guy who manages a very creative offense well, but a player who is somewhat creative, but not as dynamically creative. That nice play by Mariota where he worked to his left, worked across the field to his right, and threw towards the boundary, it was a good play. It was a fairly creative play, but I wouldn't say it was nearly as dynamic as what we saw from Wilson on two of the four highlights that I showed. So that's my answer for Mariota. I think he's a decent player. I think that he's someone that certainly has potential to become a starter if he can show the accuracy and tight window velocity and placement on intermediate throws between the hashes, and if he can show a deep ball and a little bit and curtail some of his recklessness because he gets so invested on buying time on a play. So that's that for this session. I know it's been a little bit of a longer one. Part of it's because I'm a little tired and probably going slow. But if you're interested in doing these RSP sessions with me, go ahead and write me at mattwaldmanrsp@gmail.com. You can contact me there and, find out more, and we can talk about whether or not, this would be a good fit for you to do. On top of it, I'd like to thank Draft Breakdown. They just do amazing work. And, most of the videos that I'm going to feature are going to be cut-ups from them. And if it weren't for them, it would take a lot longer for me to watch a lot of games. Though I tape my own, I often look to Draft Breakdown first before I consult my library. And next week, I think it's going to be Jeff Lloyd and I. We're going to be looking at a wide receiver. After that, I think Kyle Posey is going to be joining me. We're also going to get an opportunity to work with, I believe, Scott Bischoff of GM Junior. Further down the line, we're going to see, I believe it's, I think it's Jeff Hewitt, who is a quarterback coach, who's going to be working with me down the line. I'm hoping to get Brian Finn, who is Villanova's wide receiver coach, who tentatively agreed earlier this year to look at some wide receivers for me. And of course, we're going to get some of our favorites, guys like Justice Mosqueda, Eric Stoner, Sigmund Bloom, Cecil Lammey, maybe some Gene Bramall, more Ryan Riddle. They're all going to be coming down the pike here, taking a look at players as we get closer to the 2015 season. So once again, I'm Matt Waldman. Thanks again for watching this show, and have a good weekend.